everybody, welcome. This is Perspectives, the home edition. Hopefully, next season, we'll be back live in the studio again. We have an interesting guest today, an old friend of mine that's, well, he's been bouncing around an area that is so familiar, I'm sure, to some of you. And a couple of 3 weeks ago, I got this edition of Reader's Digest, and in it, there was my friend, Ken Busby, the head honcho, executive director over at the Route 66 Alliance. Ken, good to see you.
Thanks, Sam. It's great to see you too.
We're here today to talk about the Alliance and the Mother Road and Mr. Avery. So let's start first with the Alliance. Tell us what it's all about.
Sure, Sam. The Route 66 Alliance, first, thanks for having me with you today. But the Alliance is a 501c3 nonprofit corporation. It's headquartered in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and its purpose is the promotion, the maintenance, the marketing of Route 66, historic Route 66, all the way from Chicago to Santa Monica. It was founded by Michael Wallace, the author, historian, voice of the sheriff in Disney Pixar's Cars. Great to work with him. And really, this alliance was to carry on the vision of Cyrus Stevens Avery, the father of Route 66, and to really celebrate this most iconic symbol of America. I mean, there is nothing else like a 2,448-mile icon, and it is, the most recognized roadway in the world. It's one of those things about America that outsiders, Europeans, Asians, the rest of the world knows even better, I think, than America knows. And it is that iconic piece of American history that and America's love with the automobile that just resonates with everyone.
Well, how in the world then did Cyrus Avery get involved? I mean, that wasn't the only thing he did in his lifetime.
No, that's true. And in fact, while he was very proud of Route 66 and what it meant, and we'll talk a little bit about that, he had two other projects that he did for Northeast Oklahoma, for Tulsa, of which he was even prouder. One, he knew with a burgeoning city like Tulsa, that it was going to need a really great water supply. He knew water was going to be critical to agriculture, to the population, to everything. And so he was largely responsible for tapping into Spavinaw, and the reason we have great drinking water. And the other thing he was really proud of was his knowing that if Tulsa was really going to flourish, it needed a world-class airport. And so he donated the land that was for our first airport, the Tulsa Municipal Airport, that later became the Tulsa International Airport. And so those two things for him were just absolutely paramount to making Tulsa this great city that would be, the oil capital of the world and all of that. So he helped lay some very important groundwork. And then came Route 66. And so he got himself involved through city politics and so forth, and the chamber. And then he also was able to get himself appointed, because of his efforts, to the Federal Highway Commission. And they had decided they were going to create a national federal highway system. And how are they going to do that? So Avery's one of the gentlemen that leads that effort, and so they they decided on endpoints. So they take Chicago on one end, and they put Santa Monica on the other, and says, okay, now how do we connect those two great cities? And so if you think about a straight line, and you think about the shortest distance, you'd go Chicago, Santa Monica, okay, you'd probably go through Iowa, Nebraska, and so forth, but that's not what this was about. This was about entrepreneurship. This was about economic development. And so it was, let's connect those towns, those cities along the way between those two that make the most sense and really help develop that spirit of entrepreneurship. This is why we had all the great mom and pop shops that developed in small towns and large cities all across Route 66. And so as they're looking at where we're going to put this highway, there were 14 different routes that were looked at. And the 14th route, the most southern route, was the one that Avery got, and that's the one that came through Oklahoma. Were it not for Cy Avery, we would not be having this discussion today, because the road would never have come through Oklahoma. But the reason it came through Oklahoma was because of a bridge built that crosses the Arkansas River, and it's called we call it the old 11th Street Bridge. It's now the Cy Avery Memorial Bridge. And it was the first concrete and steel reinforced bridge to cross the Arkansas River anywhere in the country. built in 1917. Remember, Route 66 comes around in 1926. So this bridge, 9 years older, and he convinced the highway department that that was going to be the safe route because you had to cross the Arkansas River somewhere, and that was going to be the safe route for this newfangled contraption called an automobile. And so he convinced them. The whole numbering system, he was part of the whole numbering system that set up our entire grid across the country. And that's how we got Route 66 and why it came through Tulsa. And that's also why we call Tulsa the capital of Route 66.
Well, Mr. Avery must have been a visionary. I mean, he had, but at the same time, he had no way of knowing how many lives he would touch with his support of and eventually the passage of legislation to get this road built.
That's true.
It's incredible the people who've traveled Route 66.
Oh, yes. I mean, it really is when you think about it. Millions of people a year when we're not in a pandemic, for sure. Although road travel is the safest way to travel during a pandemic, and so we've seen some good numbers and strength of numbers coming back up on that. But no, road travel is what it's all about. And as I said, you know, people outside the United States know Route 66 even better than we do. So every year, Europeans, Asians, all Australia, everybody travels Route 66. They come, they make plans, they do week-long tours, 2-week tours, 3-week tours, and it's great. I love to talk about the blue whale in Catoosa because it's probably one of the most iconic images of the road anywhere, and everybody wants their photo taken at this giant blue whale. So just as a quick number here, in 2019, when we had our last year of really solid numbers before the pandemic, more than 100,000 visitors checked in. Don't know how many stopped that didn't check in, but 100,000 visitors plus checked in at the Blue Whale, signed the guest book, and so forth. They were from all 50 states and 37 foreign countries. That many people coming to Catoosa, Oklahoma to see a giant blue whale. That's incredible. And there's stories like that up and down the river. Up and down the road.
When you make the trip, you're not going to see that many things in terms of bustling enterprises. You're going to see almost the way life was back when the road was built.
That's true. That's true. You know, it's one of those things, and not to denigrate it, because we needed the interstate system. But truly, when we talk about interstates and we use the word bypass, that's literally what it did. The bypass system bypassed a lot of these small towns and so forth, and the interstate system really was the demise of many of those wonderful mom and pop shops in these small towns, because without that constant traffic, without those people coming to and being able to literally bypass those communities, a lot of those small towns shriveled. A lot of them died, sadly, and so today we're starting to see sort of a rebirth in that pride of Route 66 and sort of that hearkening back to that time. And people are really trying to start renovating and focusing on Route 66 as an economic driver, as a tourism driver, so that they're inviting people to come into their communities to see their small town America, because that is America at its finest. That is America, that iconic feel that people want, that love nostalgia and want to have those experiences. That's what they're looking for. It's small town America.
Back when the Depression hit in 29, the Mother Road became the main artery for folks trying to find the land of milk and honey, who were on their way to California, going to break into show business, going to work in the shipyards, going to find some kind of work. And if they couldn't find work, they'd be back on Route 66, headed back this way. But another interesting sidebar, 2 major motion pictures have been filmed on Route 66 between Tulsa and Santa Monica. One was Grapes of Wrath with Henry Fonda. Mm-hmm. And there is a marker that you'll find not too far past the Oklahoma border that will, you can pull off and walk around where Fonda actually walked, where they filmed it. Another film involved David Carradine when he worked on a Woody Guthrie film, the life story of Woody Guthrie. Mm-hmm. That's also well marked. Absolutely. So it's got a lot of romantic history, to it. And you probably already know this, but Paul McCartney from the Beatles came to this country, started in Illinois, and went all the way on Route 66, driving the old Mother Road as much as he could. Spent about 5 days in Tulsa, and nobody ever knew it. which I think is one of the greatest things in the world.
Isn't it?
He was able
Yeah.
to pull that off. My wife and I drove Route 66 in both directions, and I want to talk about that in a couple of minutes and let you know what we found. But first, a little bit about something that folks who are new to the area might not know about. We have a run here in Tulsa called the Tulsa Run. It's a yearly event unless you have a pandemic.
Right.
And it usually winds up at the Crybaby Hill.
Right.
Down next to the bridge.
Yes, sir.
The Cyrus Avery Bridge.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you go up Crybaby Hill, there's a large area to park, and you can look across the freeway, not that many feet, and see the bronze statue that's set up to commemorate Cyrus Avery and all he accomplished with the Brother Road.
That's right. And that sculpture, this beautiful bronze sculpture, is entitled East Meets West, because truly that is what's happening. That bridge is sort of, if you think about geographically, where the turn comes. You've gone from Chicago to Tulsa, and then you really make that turn west, and you head on to Santa Monica. And so the sculpture is East Meets West. It's a horse-drawn carriage meeting a newfangled car, and those two technologies and those two eras colliding, and Cy Avery himself is in the back of that car. So it's a great memorial to that. There are 8 flags for the 8 states through which Route 66 passes there, and as you mentioned, it overlooks what we now call the Cyrus Avery Memorial Route 66 Bridge. And again, that bridge is the history and is the story. And you mentioned Crybaby Hill. You know, we also have the bike race, Tulsa Tough, and it'll be back this year. And they ride there on Crybaby Hill. And that parking lot that you're talking about is where the Route 66 Alliance will be building the Route 66 experience in a couple of years. And that's going to be a giant, but a very large motel, a historic Route 66 flavored motel. Gift shop, restaurant, and a 10,000 square foot augmented reality exhibit space telling the history of Mr.
Oh,
Avery
wow,
of
this
Route
is great
66.
stuff you're talking about.
Well, I tell you, sir, it's going to be awesome. And again, it's part of Tulsa's effort and Oklahoma's effort to just build on that history, build that story, and again, help keep telling these stories for generations to come and get new generations excited about this historic road that means so much to Oklahoma.
Ken, I got to take a short break, and
All right.
we're going to pause. We'll be back shortly, right after this.